The problem with people pleasing. Are you a people pleaser? Do you seek to always please people? I'm not asking that in a negative way. I'm asking because some of us don't even realize that we seek simply to please people. Now, I think it's a natural tendency to want to, have peace or have people like you or accept you. But I think it becomes out of control when we do everything to please people. The Apostle Paul talked about that in 1 Corinthians chapter 4 and also 2 Corinthians chapter 5. I'm going to talk about 2 Corinthians chapter 5 first. 2 Corinthians chapter 5, starting at verse 1 through about verse 10, he's dealing with the issue of the battle to be here on earth or to go to heaven. He talks about that there's a struggle going on, whether to be at home with the Lord is great, but when you're home with the Lord, you're absent from the body. But while we're present in the body, we're absent from the Lord. So he talks about the struggle back and forth. Picking up in verse 6, he says this: "Therefore, being always of good courage, and knowing that while we are at home in the body, we are absent from the Lord." Verse 7, "For we walk by faith and not by sight. We are of good courage. I say, prefer rather to be absent from the body and to be at home with the Lord." So he says, you know what? There's this battle going on, this dichotomy of, at home with the Lord, you'll be absent from the body, which means you'll leave this earth. Or to be at home in the body, you'll be absent from the Lord. And he ultimately says, we want to be with the Lord. I have this desire to be with the Lord. But I love what he says in verse 9 to bring it all home. He says this: "Therefore, we also have as our ambition, whether at home or absent, to be pleasing to him." So he says, no matter where I am, whether I'm at home in the body or absent from the body, be at home with the Lord, or home with the Lord or be absent from his body, my purpose, my admonition, my focus is still the same. That is pleasing the Lord. No matter what I do, my focus is to please the Lord. That's where our focus should be, not on pleasing people. And Paul struggled with this a little bit in 1 Corinthians. He kind of talks about what happened in 1 Corinthians chapter 4, starting in verse 1. People were judging him. People were saying, "Oh, Paul, you shouldn't be doing this, you shouldn't be doing that." And now, I want to make this clear. I don't believe, people always say, don't care about what people think, or people claim, I don't care what people think about me. I don't think that's quite true. We should care about what people think, because sometimes people can have valuable things to say. They can have valuable input, things that we need to change in our lives. So we do care what people think. But I don't think we need to be controlled by what people think. Because there's people out there who will say things just to control you and don't have your best interest in mind. And Paul had faced that because what he was doing was quite different. If you know anything about Paul, he used to be a persecutor of the church. He was one that would actually got permission to kill Christians and all the people who were of the way, it was called back then. And he didn't think that this was the right way until he met Christ on the Damascus Road. And at that point, everything changed about Paul. He became one of the most prolific speakers or preachers or missionaries, whatever you want to call them, of the church. He wrote so much in the New Testament that even helps us today. And so I'm pretty sure people were judging Paul about this, about that. You should be this, you should be that. Kind of like when a new believer comes to church, they're all excited about God and excited because they've been saved, and some people in the church will try to put them down. Oh, calm down, and don't quite raise your hands in church, or try to control them and control their expression of how awesome they feel about the greatness of God. And so in 1 Corinthians chapter 4, Paul talks about this issue I like to call people pleasing, because he was struggling with that. So he had to get some clarity to those people about who he was and how he would function. Look at what he says. 1 Corinthians chapter 4, starting in verse 1. He talks about servants or stewards of the gospel. This is what he says: "This is how we should regard us. One should regard us as servants of Christ and stewards of the mysteries of the gospel." So he said, this is how you should look at me, as a servant of Christ, not as of you. I don't serve you, but I'm a servant of Christ and a steward of the mysteries of the gospel. So I work for Christ, but I have a goal, a focus to steward this message, or to be a keeper of this message that he's given me. Verse 2. "Moreover, it's required that a steward or servant, that one be found faithful." He says, I got to be faithful to God, not to y'all. Look at verse 3. "But with me, it's a very small thing that I should be judged by you or by any human court. In fact, I don't even judge myself." So Paul said, it's a small thing what you say about me is a small thing. It's not a really big deal to me. And I think about that. I think when people say things about us, we got to put in the right compartment. We have to put in the right container, so to speak. How much value or weight do we give to what people say about us, about what we're doing? Because the truth is, everybody won't get what we've been called to do. Everybody will understand you and how you communicate and what is it God has called you to do. Again, I think we don't dismiss people, because I believe the Bible talks about the body of Christ, that we should help each other out. As a matter of fact, Paul said in Galatians that we should carry each other's burdens and so fulfill the law of Christ. So we are a body. But again, I think the issue is to put what people say in the right container. I look at it like this. Here's a container. When people say things about me, or, you should get a real job, or you shouldn't be doing that. You know what? I appreciate what you said, and I'm going to put it in its right place in a small container. Now, that's not saying it doesn't matter. I mean, people have invested in me over the years, have told me things, have shared things with me, and meant a lot to me, and has helped me out. But some people said some things, and if I only listened to what they told me to, I'd be a puppet. I wouldn't be me. I wouldn't be using the gifts God had called me to use. I'd be somewhere behind the desk, who knows doing what. And so I listen to what people say. I take their advice. But ultimately, when it's all said and done, I put it in a small container. He says, a small thing that I be judged of you or any other human court. Look at what he says. But I don't even, in verse 4, for I am not aware of anything against myself, but I am not therefore acquitted. It is the Lord who judges me. So he says, even what I say about myself, even though I don't think there's anything wrong about what I've been doing or how I've been living, but even that, my own judgment goes in the same small container. I love what he says in verse 5. Therefore, do not pronounce judgment before the time, before the Lord comes, who will bring to light the things now hidden in darkness, and will disclose the purposes of men's hearts. Then each one will receive his praise from God. What is Paul saying? I believe he's saying this, that ultimately we don't know everything. We don't see the ins and outs. We don't see the motives of men's hearts. We don't see all these things, and people don't see those about me. So I can't ultimately judge them. I do make judgments or make pronouncements of right and wrong. That's clear. People always say you shouldn't judge other people. We've been called to make judgments, whether something is right or wrong. But I don't condemn people. I don't have that authority to condemn people. But I do have to make a judgment whether that's right, that's wrong. You should consider doing this. And that's in love. But ultimately, I think what Paul is saying is this. Again, what people say about me, I put it in this container. And what I even think of myself, I put it in this container. But ultimately, what God says about me, what God thinks about me, the purposes God gives me, I put those in a big container. Right here. That's my focus. Because God knows the whole picture. And I love what he says at the end there. When God comes, every man will receive his praise from God. Why is that so important? Receiving my praise from God and not people? Number one, I'm a servant of God. I belong to God. So I'm excited that the one who called me, who justified me, who saved me, who brought me out of darkness into marvelous light, that he is the one who will judge me, and he will the one that will give me my praise. At that moment, everyone will receive their praise from God. I need to live to please him. Same thing Paul said. He said we make it our ambition, whether in the body or absent with the Lord, or to be present in the body, at home in the Lord, absent from the body, to please him. No matter what state we're in, whether we're in heaven or on earth, our focus is to live to please God. So, what does that mean for you? Connecting faith and life is what Proclaim Ministries is all about. We want to help students connect, live for God by connecting faith and life. So what does that mean? In my life and in your life, stop trying to please people alone. I look at it this way. If I make it my ambition, my purpose to please the Lord, and if people are pleased with that, then that's okay. But if I make my mission to please people, and the Lord is not pleased with that, then I'm in a world of trouble. So the problem with people pleasing is it's simply people. And the reality is, if you focus on people, things change all the time. I remember growing up as a kid, the styles would always change. One minute it was high top fades, high top fades back in the day. It was the type of shoes you wore. See, we couldn't afford the Air Jordans, my hope was to get a pair of Sky Jordans, or the certain jeans and the hairdos and the styles. And if I tried to keep up with all that, I would go crazy. because it always changed. And for a while I did. I had a Jerry curl, looked like Michael Jackson. Yeah, I had hair. Yes, I did have hair. But the point is this: if I tried to keep up with people, I would lose my self-identity, who it is that God has made me. So I don't know where you are today. Maybe you're in a job right now because simply you're trying to please people. Maybe you're going down a career path, you're going to school and get educated based on what people said and not necessarily what God has told you, what you feel that God has gifted you to do. Maybe you're serving in the ministry somewhere where you are doing it because of people. We're talking about the deep motives of your heart. What is your purpose? What is your ambition? What is your focus? And I pray it is to please Him. Because if you don't, there's a huge problem with people pleasing because you're not pleasing the Lord.